4 from 4. We said it the first week that it was 2 from 4. 4 from 4. We said it the second week it was 4 from 4. And I can tell you now, we'll keep on saying 4 from 4 every week.
I can hear you say 4 from 4 all day, mate. I
Boks
love
by
the sound
10,
of it.
4 from 4 when it comes to the URC. The Lions. They have become everyone's favorite team, including mine. No, the Stormers always been my favorite team, but the Lions are the
Gotta
team
love them.
I love watching play. 48-0 up at halftime. The greatest 40 minutes you say they've played in franchise history.
Ever. That's the best that team has ever played in 40 minutes. Unstoppable. Absolutely unstoppable, mate. In every facet of play. It was brilliant. It was beautiful to watch. They couldn't believe they were up 48-0.
Was there a moment that you thought at 48-21, uh-oh, maybe they played themselves out?
Well, mate, they certainly didn't come out for the second half. No, what happened there, mate, was Edinburgh decided that they were just going to play less rugby in the second half. Got real physical, real direct. And I think in rugby, as is always the case, when you've got a massive lead like that, it's quite hard to pick yourself up and be your angriest in contact when you know it's basically impossible to lose the game. So, lost a bit of concentration, but closed it out, 55-21.
Yeah, scored the last try. That's always important. Came back and scored the try. But that result reminds me of when I think the Crusaders played the Cats, which was a combination of the Lions and the Cheetahs.
Is this Rassie's days?
Yeah, back in Rassie's days, and they played them out in Nelson. Andre Markov was the coach. And they were trying to play a new style of play, which was same side all the time, but it takes incredible conditioning to be able to play like that. You're just attacking. And I switched on the telly, and just before halftime, when the Cats were ahead 36-6, and I couldn't believe this was an afternoon game. It's like the Cats are leading the Crusaders 36-6. And then they lost 56-36.
Wow.
And Chris van Lockenberg told me that if the game had gone on by another 10 minutes, it would be 86-36. That they were so finished at halftime. The guys said that their legs were like lead. They couldn't move. And I think that's what the Crusaders took heart from, was these Oaks they don't have 40 minutes left in them. But wasn't quite the same thing at Ellis Park with the Lions. They had 80 minutes in them, like you say, just the structure of the game. But Cash van Rooyen said pre-season, we're going to get top 4 this year. We're going to do it. They were impressive in the Currie Cup. A big surprise that they actually didn't win that Currie Cup final against the Sharks, especially in the way they played that final. I felt that they went into their shells. They kind of got spooked by the occasion. And it's back to this free-flowing, reminds me a lot of Johan Ackerman's Swiss de Bruyn's days and the way they play and the kind of team that they've built. No superstars initially, then 3 or 4 get picked for the Boks squad. And all of a sudden, they're playing the most complete kind of game in South African rugby. Admittedly, haven't travelled yet. They travel this weekend, but just a joy to watch.
But also, don't underestimate the punch that some of those guys bring. I mean, in Tlabakanya, we've mentioned before, PJ Botha, very good hooker.
Is he one of your favourite players?
In Tlabakanya?
Yes.
Pound for pound, the best player in the world.
I mean, everyone seems to dig
him.
this oak, eh?
Love him.
Charismatic. I mean, could he challenge Oster Run from
in a sprint?
In that first 10 seconds.
Sprint.
Yeah, 10 minutes
It'd be close, man. It depends. Is there a hot dog on the other side?
Or brandy and Coke.
Or brandy and Coke. But what I'm saying is they've got guys that can punch there. Eric Cronje, Reinhard Jonkers playing good rugby. There's a bunch of guys in there that are of the sort of Marius Low ilk. And so they do play expansive rugby, but they can front up as well. It's been good.
Tell me about this Eric Cronje. He made this Opta Stats, Rugby Stats. They pick a team of the week that comes out of the top 14, the URC, and the Premiership. And in the first round of matches that the South Africans played in, which was 2 weeks ago, 4 South Africans made the squad. It was Andre the Giant at 12, Cronje at 13, your mate at prop, and I think there was one other that made it. And then this week, 2 made it. It was Ulrich Lowe that made it, and who's the other one?
The Lions guy. Was it Edwell?
Edward van der Merwe, yes, the winner, yeah. So they are being noticed, and I mean, it's the Lions players seem to figure there, but this Cronje, Henke van Wyk was the talk of the town 2 seasons ago, struggled with a lot of injury.
Yeah.
What impressed you about this dude?
Eric Cronje is a bit of a journeyman, so it's not a guy
I knew that, so you like the underdog, eh?
followed closely, but he's just got this killer fend off, and he's not the biggest guy at outside centre, but he plays like a very direct. His running lines are hard and tight, and he's got this way of breaking tackles. So I think he becomes a bit of a problem there. He's almost in the sort of Paul Jordan mold, the guy who used to play for the Sharks. So there's an X factor to him, and an X factor that doesn't come at massive defensive frailty. Like, he's a physical combatant. There's something about this guy. So I know Henko van Wyk is the oak everyone's talking about at the Lions for outside centre, but this guy's got something.
All right, and if you had to say to someone who doesn't watch the Lions often, go watch them. These are your 3 or 4 players you need to kind of look out for. Who would they be?
Well, I mean, Frankie Horn at 8 is a fabulous player. I think he fits the way they play brilliantly. Saneli Nahamba is a guy who came off the bench, very versatile player, offers value as a goal kicker, and he's got that sort of cocky demeanour about him that I think is brilliant to have at 9. Very confident player. They seem to have an abundance of these overachieving centres, guys like Reinhard Jonker, Marius Lowe, Eric Cronje, Henko van Wyk. Electric finishers, Edwin van der Merwe, Ravs Makwane, great. Keo Horn is a guy who's been on the Bok radar. So, and obviously, I don't know if I mentioned him again, but in Tlabakanye, outstanding. So they've just got all these...
Spell that name.
Impossible, mate. I
Say
think
it backwards.
You get a score of 65 in Scrabble for that name. I've checked that out. No, I haven't.
And that grin. What a grin.
Yeah.
You look at him, you just actually want to be a prop. You want to play. And Edwin van der Merwe, he's been electric for the Lions for a while. He was electric when he was down here playing for Province.
Yes.
Made his debut, man of the match, player of the match against Wales, then got injured, wasn't considered again. Do you see him forcing his way into that 33-player squad for the India tour, or maybe one test too few there, and they'd have to take 36?
I would love to see him there. I'm not sure about his long-term prospects in the Boks because of his age. He's not the youngest of guys, but his career has just been hampered by injury, and I think without those injuries, he'd be a household name by now because he is an outstanding finisher.
He is an outstanding finisher, but when I saw that finish of his, I thought, well, he's going back to hospital for another 6 weeks. I memean...
when he took off.
A coach's killer. Because when you see him start leaping, you think, what's he going to damage on the way down? You've had so many injuries just running and dot the ball down, but a meter before that try line, he was in swallow dive mode, okay? And... into the wind, otherwise he may have been in the grandstand. But
if Brayton had dived like that in the old days, the winds would just have swept him up into the stands.
But yeah, elaborate kind of celebration. Incredible try he scored, just wonderful skill. But the offload to him as well was just slick. It was like watching you down at Hammy's play 6-touch.
Yeah, maybe not.
Eh? Just fantastic.
Yeah.
So the Lions, they're on the road. They go and they play the Dragons.
Yes.
On Sunday afternoon. And have you got them to win?
I have got them to win. They're playing the Dragons. Welsh rugby's in a bit of a state at the moment. I think the Lions have got momentum, they've got confidence, and they've got power. So I've got them for the win.
And they're a team that traditionally, like we said last week, has been good on the road. And a big difference playing in Wales and playing an afternoon game than playing those 25 to 9 evening games.
Yes.
Where it's cold, it's a bit wet, it's under those lights.
And playing in Wales in October versus playing there in November, December.
Completely. What they would want this Lions side, though, is consistency. Because last year they went over, like, fabulous win against Connacht against the Ducks. And then the next week they went and they were poor against one of the Welsh teams and they got beaten. And so they would want to just back it up. And I think they've had these 2 great home wins. To go and get the first one on the road, it really sets them up. It really sets them up for that top 4 place in that Cash Rowan's been speaking about.
Totally, and very interesting that South African teams gave everybody else in the comp a week head start because we're great sportsmen, and we've now played 2 games and we've got 3 teams that are in the playoff picture.
We've been playing away from home.
Yeah, not too bad.
Understandable that the English want to merge with the URC teams, eh? Because otherwise it's just going to be the Curry Cup again.
Mate, England's sinking now, isn't it?
The Curry Cup with Leinster.
Yeah, exactly. The Curry Cup.
The only time we won't be saying 4x4 is when our teams go to Dublin, okay?
Yeah.
Then we'll be saying 3 and possibly 3 from 4, okay? Huge respect for Leinster. I had them to actually struggle against Benetton, who last year were the surprise package. This year, not so much. And for them to whip them the way they did, lovely to see a lot of the Irish internationals in that Leinster side so early on in the URC, because for the first 3 years, they sprinkled them in there. They played 6 out of the 18 games, and they've never made it to a final. It's been one of the most stunning surprises of the URC is that the all-conquering Leinster have never made it to a final, let alone hosted one. But I do think it could change this year. They certainly have approached the URC very differently. Jacques Nienhaber's there. Seems to be a lot more respect for the league. And they look bloody good in dismantling Benetton.
We're going to find out more about Leinster this week because it's the Leinster-Munster game.
It is, but Munster got quite a few injuries, some big names that aren't going to be there. But he's at Croke Park. I think it's 70,000 plus that are going to be at that game. But I think Leinster will have too much for it. But it'll be a feisty opening 40. I just think for Munster to actually do something, they've got to have their full strength side available, all those Irish
Mate,
internationals.
it sounds a bit like you jumping ship there. I mean, all this time you've been telling me you're a Munster fan.
I am a Munster fan, but I'm also a realist. And the interesting thing is going to be Archie Snyman.
Yes. Will he play more than 5 minutes?
Well, it will be 5 minutes more than he played for Munster.
Exactly.
Archie, the only time he played for Munster was when he beat our beloved Stormers. He came on and was brilliant in that final. But I saw a meme, I don't know if it was a meme or a quote, but saying he's just chuffed to be around the world's best players again, which I don't know if they were going on too well in the Boks setup or in the Munster setup.
I think it's an in-house joke, mate.
I know it is. But the Munster-Leinster rivalry, massive. Leinster, over the last few years, have always had the wood on them when it's been strength against strength, they're full teams. But it's going to be a fantastic occasion for Irish rugby at Croke Park. So much history at Croke Park that's not rugby related.
Yeah.
And that's one I'll definitely be tuning into, and just fantastic for the league as well. To have 70,000 plus tickets sold for a local derby. Wow. I mean, the guys at the URC, you see what's going on in South Africa in terms of the health of the game. Come on, who would want to entertain anything from the English Premiership? 8 of their 10 clubs are apparently insolvent. They are struggling. The appeal in English Premiership at the moment is so low. Saracens weren't the team they used to be. We look at it always because of the Saffers that are there. Jan van Graan is doing good things with Bath. South Africans who were playing at Harlequin, scattered around. Sale Sharks have always got a few Duprees in it.
Yeah.
But if you think club rugby at the moment in the world, you think top 14 and it's primarily their top 6, and you think the URC. At least I do.
Absolutely. It's the competition. It is the competition in rugby.
It is. And just when you've just seen the kind of results we've seen in the first couple of weeks, the quality of player that's playing there, and the core of the World Champions.
That's what I was just going to say.
They come out of the URC.
That's what I was going to say.
And the number 1 team in the world, Ireland, they come out of the URC.
The core of the team that's going to win the next World Cup comes out of there, mate.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. So, sorry about that, Super Rugby Pacifica and the English Premiership, but you guys are a little bit down on the pecking order at the moment. The Sharks, up against the Dragons, we expected them to win. I didn't think it would be fashioned that way, but kudos, 26 plus phases, and all it took was a Dragons player to want to intercept the ball, knock it on, and boom, we scored. So does he get a try assist for that?
I don't know, mate. Fezan Bata under the sticks. I said this guy's having the season of his career. Lovely to see him thriving. And the Sharks got out of jail there because they almost found a way to lose that one.
But I saw this Oak protest in there, and it's like, well, why? You knocked it off, mate, straight into Oak's hand.
Exactly.
Try
Thanks.
time. So good win for the Sharks on the road.
Yes.
Any win on the road is a good win, okay?
Yes.
So bank it, and a very important win for the Sharks, because they will want to show after the Challenge Cup victory, the Currie Cup victory, that this is the league they want to do well in. And when you look when their Springboks come back and the quality of the squad there, you've got to say that they must be saying we have to be in that top 4, not even a top 8, a top 4.
No, absolutely.
Given the investment in players there.
Absolutely, without a doubt.
Wilco was back, and that meant the scrum was strong.
My goodness.
Steenekamp was on the loose head. He was on the tight head. Absolutely destroyed an Ulster pack. And then for me, the player that I just thought, hang on a second, I've watched him. He's been a little bit inconsistent at times. But David Creel at 12, he's played 11, 14, 15, 12, and he took some of the goal kicking. The combination with David Creel and Kane Moody was one I found very exciting. I think Kane Moody's career will end at 13. He's still good enough to play for the next 3 or 4 years at Win. But David Creel, is he a guy that fits Rassie's prototype?
Well, absolutely. I mean, it's something you brought up multiple times before. I 100% think Davy Creel could totally fit into the Boks setup because he can play just about everywhere across the back line. He's physical and he's big, but he's also very skillful, can kick, has played fullback, can finish on the wing, can create at centre, can rough and tough it at 12. I mean, he's your all-purpose back. So it's, for me, that's a no-brainer. He's a guy I would definitely look at.
And a guy that's certainly grown on you, Ruan Nokia.
Ruan Nokia, absolutely. Him and Ulrich came back from the Boks, and they looked like Boks at the weekend. I mean, Nokia was touchline to touchline tackles, running the line out. Ulrich Lowe is back to the guy that burst onto the scene where he was just running through and over people. His carries were massively effective on the weekend again, and he looks like he's angry. So that's a good thing for Bulls fans.
But he also looks rejuvenated.
He does.
A year ago, he just looked punch drunk. He looked laboured, battered, and just absolutely fatigued.
Running a lot, but going nowhere.
And he's introduced that step into his game.
Yes.
He's knowing when to take contact, but he also is playing with a bit of a smile on his face. Cam Hanekon's going to come.
Jeez.
That kid has got it. I mean, he looks like he's about 30.
Yeah,
he's just got that hardened look about him.
Yeah.
Great talent. And then an interesting selection at 10, Buddha Chamberlain. It was nice to see him get through a game, contribute, because he's at that cusp of being a bit of a journeyman, going from one club to the next.
Totally.
And it was good to see him get a gap, and because he's a 10, he's not a 15.
No, totally. Agree 100% on that. And I think in terms of his all-round play, probably the best South African fly-off on display in the URC last weekend. So, he's got an opportunity. He's playing ahead of Goose at the moment and Jaco van der Walt, and has taken it with both hands.
And then the thing that surprised me the most, and look, I know he's a tricky fella, and maybe his best years are he's kind of had his best years, Jacob Stockdale. But I was surprised that Kirtley gave him the outside and he took it.
Yeah, no.
And it was a bit like at the World Cup in 2007 when the Zimbabwean American winner, I can't pronounce his surname. When Brian Abana gave him the outside and he took it.
He was gone.
And Brian always says, I just couldn't believe this guy actually got away from me.
Yeah.
You could just see that shock on Kirtley's face that this guy's actually a little bit quicker than I thought.
But also bigger. Like Stockdale's a big unit.
Yeah.
And he brushed off Kirtley's attempt there with ease. And then he did that amazing chip collect try time, baby.
Yeah, people forget. He scored a very similar try against the All Blacks 16-9 when they won. The final game of the season was who was the number one team in the world, the All Blacks or Ireland. And it was this incredibly intense 80 minutes. And his try was the decisive one. Also, a chip, a gather, and a score. So a very, very good play, which tells you how good James Lowe must be to keep a guy like that out of the side.
If Jacob Stockdale was from Auckland, mate, he may have played more matches.
That could be the thing, yes. He's not part of the project plan, but a very good play. But I was so impressed with the Bulls' result against an Ulster team that's
Very
never
good.
easy to beat.
Yeah.
And very few teams put a big one on them.
Yeah. And Sean McLeod at flower for them. Just absolutely amazing.
He was brilliant. Like,
So
that
good.
guy gets around. And then my beloved Stormers. I had to take a deep breath there because it was like, said to Dobbo in the week, you wouldn't pick one of those Zebra players instead of your Stormers guys. Remind them of that.
Yeah.
And I was so chuffed that they went out there and they actually played with maturity. They played with discipline, a lot of aggression. But it wasn't this. They earned the right to go wide when they want to. They actually just did their basics very effectively. And this was a Zebra team that scored 42 points against Munster. They scored 6 tries the week before that. For the Stormers to keep them down to 0 till 76 minutes and basically have a 30-point lead at that stage, that to me was the most encouraging thing, was the 0 that Zebra had.
Totally.
On 76 minutes. Because I had a gut feel the Stormers would win, but it would be one of those 42-32 games.
Yeah.
And it would be, we score 1, you score 1, but we can actually score 2.
Yes.
So, a hell of an impressive performance. They had to come back and make a statement. It's always tough on the road. They were very unfortunate against the Ospreys because the performance didn't warrant the kind of result that they got.
Totally.
As the URC has come out and said, there were a lot of mistakes made at scrum time. They should have got penalties. They weren't getting reward there.
Yep.
But just the maturity that they showed and the discipline. And I think it comes back to a guy like Schickelin, who's calling the lineouts. He's made a strong statement. Ruan Nell's presence with Dup in the
Massive.
midfield. And then Damian Willemse. You talk about Ulrich Lowe and Ruan Nokia coming back and just looking like they've had a rugby championship campaign. That guy is just world class.
I keep saying it.
Damian Willemse is just a joy to watch, but whether he's playing 10, 12, 15, he's doing things all the time, and the confidence that he has on the field, and the with Sasha being out injured, Marnie not being available at the moment, you'd like to see the Damian Williams at 10, Warwick Galan 15, combo work. And yes, who kicks for goals? My point, who cares? They should score more tries and win the game. But it was great to see them there. Neatlim Forshie, one of my favorite players.
Oh, you had a good game.
Let's say it's Neatlim Forshie. Almost say Neatlim Forshie. I won't say Neatlim Forshie.
In Connacht.
In Connacht. No, I just... That guy is also, I do hope somewhere along the line he gets into the Boks squad.
Yeah, me too,
and
man.
he gets a run, because the season he had last season, he was just outstanding. The way he carried that tight head side with very few games from France Malherbe. Brocky Harris helped out on the loose head and the tight head. But to see Neatlim Forshie take up the captaincy, get through games, play up to 80 minutes at times.
Yeah.
But and play with such a smile on his face all the time.
Yeah.
And be so refreshing is just how he supports his teammates, how he supports the prop factory in South Africa. I remember when Steenkamp got picked, he was the first one on to X to say, "You're a great player, you'll do well. I've scrummed against you. Well done." So, good guy to have in the mix. Important win for the Stormers.
Yep.
And anyone else that I haven't mentioned that you thought? Marcel Tennyson had a good game.
Yeah, I was most impressed with the defense in that game. There were parts of that game where, like, I looked at the score and then I looked at how the Stormers were playing, and the Stormers, for a team to be up by as much as they were and have blanked the opposition, there were times in that game where I felt like the Stormers were playing like they were under pressure somehow. But the defense bailed them out massively in that game. I thought it was outstanding physically in defense. Angelo Davis came up with some massive hits. Dan Dupe and Ruan Null in midfield, monsters. Very physical. You could tell what I'm trying to get across there is you could tell the Stormers were quite tight about this game. Like, it was a must win. It had a tension to it that the scoreboard kind of belied, because you were like, well, hang on a second, you in total control of this game. Where's this tension coming from? So to your point about that, I think they got the monkey off their back there with that win. And they'll probably be a lot more comfortable going into this week.
Yeah, I think pre the tour, they would have banked a Zebra win.
Yes.
Okay? And they would have banked an Ospreys win. And we know that Edinburgh, even though they struggled at Ellis Park, they're a hell of a difficult side to beat at home. Leinster went there, won the first game 33-31. It was a mixed match Leinster side, but still a good side, and they got out of jail right near the end. So people don't go to that 4G pitch and just knock them over. So it was those first two games were going to be important.
Yeah.
When they didn't get the result against Ospreys, despite a very strong start, it was all of a sudden like, if we drop anything against Zebra here, basically the seasons.
Yeah.
It's like you've got a gun against your head for the rest of the season.
We've done that before.
Yeah, and to get those 5 league points, but again, to get it the way they did was so encouraging for me, because they showed their coach John Dobson respect. They showed Rita, they showed Davy respect. They showed the effort that's gone in their pre-camp respect to say, this isn't a game we're going to stuff around.
Yeah.
We're actually going to play according to a plan that's maybe not us. To get this win, and they got it well. So fantastic win, and no easy games, as we keep on saying in this competition. They play Edinburgh. I've got them to win, but they're going to have to play well to win. I've got them to win by a single score. I've got the Sharks to win by a single score against Benetton. I think the Sharks will get up for that game. Benetton have been, like as we said, as they were the big surprise last season.
Yeah.
They've been the big surprise and not been that competitive this season. And I got the Bulls, obviously, to win. I'm always going to back Jake White's side. I mean, I always love it when Jake's side does well, and I send him a text, and immediately he says, thanks. And when they don't do well, I send him a text, I just don't get it. But I got a 4 from 4 again for the South African teams, and it's just great for the URC. You said you've got the Bulls to lose and the Sharks to lose.
I've got a clean sweep, but I think it is going to be tight, squeaky bum stuff this week. Big challenge for the Sharks at Benetton. That's a potential slippery slope there. But if the South African teams can come out with 4 wins from 4 away games this week, that's a huge statement. Gives us massive momentum going into the comp, and suddenly that being a game behind becomes a bit of a sword of Damocles for the rest of the teams in the comp, because every time they look at the standings, the South African teams can potentially be better than they are. So I think that's great. That's great for us.
So it's been a great start for the URC. Last week we spoke about the Springboks obviously winning the Rugby Championship. Spoke about the tour that's coming up. Rassie Rasmussen told us it's 33 players he's looking at, because there's just 3 tests. There's not the 4th test. My plea for a 4th test against Ireland seems to fall on deaf ears. No one wants the Grand Slam tour at the moment. They've given it to Australia. First time ever, played 4, lost 4. It's a different kind of Grand Slam.
Yeah.
We saw the New Zealand squad selected for their 5 match tour. They start with Japan, end with Italy, and obviously the 3 big ones in between. They've got that beautiful semi-final, final of a World Cup turnaround. They play England, 6 days later they play Ireland. Very conservative selection from Scott Robinson. We got back at 9. That's about it. It's the same old that we saw in the Rugby Championship. Interesting to see how they go. They've taken Sam Cane. They've taken Perinara. So in his mind, he's saying, I need to win test matches, and the blooding will start next season. I think that loss at home to Argentina has really taken his plans and kind of stifled them for a bit. But the All Blacks we'll be chatting about in the weeks to come. Looking at the Boks, we've had this wonderful conversation for the last couple of days, Zell, myself, and whoever else wanted to listen. And it was, we are in this moment of euphoria with the Springboks, that this is the best we've ever seen the Springboks, the healthiest state. Look at our players, look at our depth. But 2027 is actually quite a long way away. And one of the questions we got as well, someone had asked us, if you had to pick a Bok team aged 30 and under to go to the World Cup in 2027, who would it be? So Zelsman did his research, and no team has ever been older than 30.
31.
31. That has won the Rugby World Cup in the history of the league. On average, 31. So he sets about picking a side of 23 to play in a World Cup final with the average age 31.
30.
30.
Yes.
Okay. Under 31, all right? So he's going to go through this squad of his. He's first going to remind you of how old the current squad is. And then he's going to go through it. And he said, please remind people that that's not necessarily my guy. It's the age. We're looking at age specific, because that's going to tell us how much depth we actually really have.
Yes.
And it's not quite as healthy as you think it is. So I'm going to, without further ado, I'm going to bring Ricky in here and Zels. And
so the situation is this, right? You told me this. I went and did the research. You're bang on point. The average age of the team that wins the World Cup is between 27 and 28. People think back to the 2003 World Cup winning England team as Dad's Army. They had an average age of 28.8. Okay, the Bok team that won the last World Cup was 31.8 years old on average, which is ancient.
The oldest ever.
Oldest ever. And so you can never say never with Rassie, right? He could take a team with an average age of 40 and probably win the World Cup. But if you look at history and you're being pragmatic about it, you've got to think to yourself, we need to be younger than we were at the last World Cup. We can't possibly go to the next World Cup with a team that's older than the 2023 finalists. And so if you look at the team from Nelspruit, which already had guys like Ruan Nokia in it, and Apaleli Fassi, that team at the next World Cup has an average age of 33. So
history makers,
Pioneers. Mate. So this is the exercise. We're not saying this is what must be done. These are not the players that I'm saying must go to the next. I'm just looking at the numbers and saying, if we were to get the team down to an average age of 30, what would we have to do? And when I tried to get the team down to an average age of 28, which is the age of most World Cup winning teams, it was unrecognizable. Like, none of these old dogs make it.
Okay, but before we go there,
yes,
very importantly,
yes,
the team that played in Nelspruit,
yes,
okay, how old would they be at the next World Cup?
33 on average.
Yes, but I think what's important.
You want me to go through the guys?
Yeah, the guys older than
30.
Than 30.
Okay, so Oxenchair would be 32. Bongi Mbanabi would be 36. Frans Malhaba, 36. Eben Etzebeth, 36. We had Ruan Nokia there. He'll be 29 at the next World Cup. Sio Khaleesi will be 36 years old. Peter Steph de Toy will be 35. Jasper Visa, 32. Jaden will be 27. Handre will be 33. Kurt Lee will be 31. Dukes will be 35. Jesse, 33. Cheslin will be 34 years old. Fassi will be 29. Malcolm Marks, 33. Steenekamp, 30. Vincent Koch, 37. Ulrich Lowe, 28. Kwacha will be 34. Kobus Reinach will be 37. Handre Pollard will be 33. And Lukanya will be 33. So that's an ancient team by historical standards.
But now you picked Handre twice. You left Mani out.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, we moved Mani around. Sorry. Where did we get Mani at? Okay. But yeah, so as you can see, Oaks are...
Mani would also be 30, okay?
Yeah.
So if you're looking at that, you could just send these guys to the Bermuda Classics. They'd win the Veterans World Cup.
But you know what I'm saying? Playing in Hawaii shirts.
Exactly. So we tend to forget just how incredible this Bok pack specifically is. And it reminds me of the great All Black teams in the early 90s, late 1980s. That All Black team in 95, 96, the 2011 All Black team, the Boks 2000, 1997, 98, they went on that 17-match unbeaten run, and then the great Australian cricket team. But when the guys retired, 7 of the 11 retired at the same time. 6 of the 8 pack retired, the All Blacks, with us, big retirements as well. It's not inconceivable that 6 of this pack could retire in the same year. If you look at Peter Steff, Sia, Eben, France, Bongi, they're all 35, 36. And what have we got that's coming through? And we don't believe there's ever a like for like. These guys are so good, and we've managed to acknowledge that with watching them live, we know how good they are, but it's only when they're going to be gone that we're going to realize just how good they are.
Isn't that always the case, eh? And I think the thing with this is not so much that these guys can't play in the 2027 World Cup final. If we get them there, I think they'll be outstanding. But the question mark is over, can you get them there in good physical condition and form? And so if they break down along the way and you haven't invested in the next man up, you're in a bit of a position. So you've got to plan around these guys not being available and then hopefully be surprised and pleased by the fact that they do make it. I'm just saying, if you invest in Frans Malherbe, Eben Etzebeth, Sia Kolisi, Peter Steff de Toy, Kobus Reinach, Vincent Koch, all these guys that are over 35 years old at the next World Cup, en masse, and history repeats itself, you're going to be sort of caught short where the next man up has got less than 10 caps.
Well, let's go back to what you said. The experience counts at the Rugby World Cups. 1995, 22-man squad, average age of the winners, 26.7 years.
Yes.
2007, 26.8. 2011 match day squad, 27.8.
Yes.
2015, 28.6.
Yeah.
But if you look at those numbers, it's gradually going up.
Yes.
So is 33 not the new...
Maybe,
is 33 not the new 26?
Maybe. I'm just looking at the numbers, but you could be right. It could be that maybe experience in the way the game has gone now, and with the bomb squad coming on to give everyone fresh legs, maybe the game is going that way.
But you gave me a lot of printouts here.
Sorry, mate. I gave you a lot of info.
Intimidated me a bit.
Sorry, mate.
Didn't know what I was looking at. But looking at one name here, when we were speaking about the URC.
Yes.
Ethan Hooker, we forgot to mention him.
Mate.
And it's the only name you always mention to me.
Mate.
Is he a guy that you see coming through in the next 2-3 years and becoming a regular in the Springbok setup?
He's a guy, so there are logistics involved in picking him at inside centre for the Springboks, but he's a guy I could totally see taking over that 12 jersey in time to come. How many guys can you think of that ended up at inside centre or outside centre for South Africa, who started on the wing and who from that position kind of evolved into a world-class player? You know, you think of like Van der Cruyff, they started him out in the left wing. He got some game time for the Stormers. They moved into fullback. He played 10 at the junior levels. The way that Ethan Hooker has just sort of slotted in on the wing from being a centre and is holding his own out there and finishing some great tries. I think he's an outstanding prospect. Big unit, skillful, physical, big match temperament. I love him. I think he's a great player. I think we've got quite rude health there. If you think of Ethan Hooker, you think of Kanan Moody as an outside centre, Henko van Wyk, Eric Cronje is a guy we've mentioned. Lorenzo Julius is coming through.
David Kruger can play.
David Kruger can play everywhere.
Fullback. So, looking at that. Now, again, please, Zels has asked me to reinforce this all the time. We're looking at age. We're not saying that player is better than the other player. We're not saying that Eben, for example, won't make it to the World Cup. We are saying that if Eben doesn't qualify because he's not under 31, the qualification for the purposes of this wonderful exercise is you've got to be younger than 31.
We've got to get the average age of the team down to the 30.
Oh, that's an average age of the team down to 31. So you can play around with. You can include an Eben who's going to be 36, but you can't include 5 Ebens.
Yes, that's exactly it. You've got to pick and choose your oldies.
And you guys can do the same exercise. Send us your teams. We'll talk about it next week.
Yeah.
We may have missed a trick or two. And, you know, we asked you last week to tell us where you listen from or where you watch from. And it's been wonderful to see all of you dropping in a comment, watching it from Boksburg. I've moved to Benoni. It's been the long trek. No, a lot of you guys have gone to Houston. You've gone to the States. You've gone to New Zealand, Australia, Canada.
One oak from Rivonia.
One oak from Rivonia, yeah, as well. One oak from Belleville. One oak from Brackenfell. One oak from the Bluff. But a couple from Vietnam. Saudi Arabia, Austria, Switzerland, Germany, France. I was surprised at how few watch from France. I thought a few of those Saffers over there would be tuning in. Eh?
Yeah.
But Budapest, our friend in Romania is always watching.
Bulgaria.
So, yeah, Bulgaria.
Wasn't there Hungary? Did you mention that?
Yeah, Hungary, South America. Hey, there's no one been from Mars yet, okay?
No one from Paraguay.
No one from Paraguay.
Ricky's
either.
so upset. Where are my countrymen?
That lovely European little city.
Yeah, that little European
little country. So yeah, if you're from a very obscure place in the world, and that obscure place can also be in South Africa.
Easily, very easily.
If you're from Oranje, we want to hear from you as well. Okay, just drop a little. This is me, and this is where I'm from, and we really appreciate it. We appreciate the support. We've nearly gone past 40 million views across all the social media and YouTube channels in our 73 episodes. So just incredible support, and we're thankful to you for that. So we would be very interested in your thoughts and in your team. Mateo from Float. We gave him a shout out. He gave us some nice caps that we gave away to some viewers. And he sent me a wonderful, wonderful message. It's actually an essay. Looks like it's about 5,000 words. I sent it to Zels to have a look at. It's probably going to take us a week, Matteo, to go through it. And then we will also comment on that. But the passion is there. I love it. Just at a glance, you make some salient points.
Yep.
We will expand on that next week. But for now, we are going to do the big reveal. And it's going to be Zels' 2027 World Cup final, match 23, that he would pick with an average age of under 31.
Yes.
That he feels is then young enough to win the World Cup. And again, a disclaimer, don't look at the names only, look at the age.
Correct. So when we started this exercise, I thought it was going to be a ton of fun. And the more I went into it, the more agonizing it became, because you are swapping names, you're trying to project youngsters coming through, where they may end up. Obviously, you've got no idea what's going to fit Rassie's plans. So this team has changed 50 times since I started it. It's got an average age of 30.1 years old. I try to get it down to 30. Like I say, when I tried to make it 28, it was a team full of players, most of whom haven't played Springbok rugby. That team in Nelspruit, the one that won the rugby championship, had an average caps of 52 test caps. And they say that the team that wins the World Cup needs to have about 40 caps per player. So when I swap out these old guys with some of these guys that are uncapped, you have to think also that they need to start playing on this, maybe the November tour, definitely next year, to start building up the caps required to get up there. So anyway, without further ado, I kept Oxenchair at Lucid prop. He'll be 32 years old at the next World Cup, in the final. I had to choose between Bongi and Malcolm Marx. I felt like Malcolm Marx playing off the bench so much, maybe he survives a bit longer, his career goes on. He's 33, he starts at hooker. I stayed with Frans Malherbe at tight head prop after putting Wilco Low in, taking him out, putting him in, taking him out, putting him in. Wilco Low will be 33 at the next World Cup, 3 years younger than Frans Malherbe, but I managed to get Frans in and not get the team to the 31 average age, so that was good. Another 36-year-old will stay at 4, Eben Etzebeth. So we've got a 36-year-old tight head, a 36-year-old 4-lock, and then a 35-year-old 5-lock as Peter Steph de Toy shifts from blindside flank to number 5 to do the jumping. And then I went with quite a young back row. So to bring the average age down, I stuck Cameron Honeycomb in at open side. I think he's got a future there. I think he's got massive potential as an open side flanker. We've got quite an abundance of number 8s. And I think Cam Honeycomb plays to the ball, is good over the ball, isn't scared to put his head in dark places. So Cam Honeycomb at open side flank. He'll be 25 at the World Cup. Ruan Venter, the crusher from the Lions. I put him at number 7. He'll be 24 in the World Cup final. Jasper Wiese sticks around at number 8. He's the guy Rassie likes. He'll be 32. At number 9, Jaden Hendrickse. He'll be 27. Andre Pollard, 33, the older statesman at fly half. And then the rest of the back line was quite tricky to pick because I went with the 6-2 bench, and it gets quite tricky to play around with who can play where and what's realistic there. But there were some tough choices that had to be made. 34-year-old Cheslin Colby did not make the cut. Like I say, very difficult decisions. At 11, I went with Kanan Moody. He'll be 25 at the World Cup. Duke sticks around, 35 at inside centre. Lukhanyo revives his career, edges Jesse Creel at the number 13 position. He'll be 33 at the World Cup. 31-year-old Kurtley Arendse on the other wing. And then Gaza, Damian Willemse sticks around at fullback. He's 29 at the next World Cup. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 guys in the starting lineup who are 31 or older. Then the bench, try to get the age down. Andre Hikofenta at hooker, 26 at the next World Cup. Gerard Steenekamp, 30 years old at the next World Cup. And Tlabakanye makes it to the Boks bench. Tight head prop, he'll be 28 at the next World Cup. Kobus Wiese, bit of a dark horse. He'll only be 30 at the next World Cup. Versatile player, fits the Rassie mold. Physical, can jump in the line out. Offers utility value there. BJ Dixon, potential blindside flank / lock cover. He'll be 29 at the World Cup. And then a guy who may be a bolter to some people, but I think he has a massive future with the Boks. Mani Chituka is eligible for Springbok selection. Can play 6, 7, or 8. I see him as an open sider. There's your Swiss Army knife on the bench. He'll be 27 at the next World Cup. And a little factoid for the people that care about those things. His birthday is the 16th of June, which means he shares a birthday with another guy that played 6 quite well, Sia Kolisi. And then Grant Williams is 31, covers scrum half and /wing at the next World Cup. And then Sasha, 25 at the next World Cup, covers most of the back line. And that gives us an average age of 30.1 years old. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 uncapped players. Andre Kofenta has 1 cap. Ruan Fenta has 1 cap. Steenekamp has 8. BJ Dixon has 5. And Sasha has 8. So quite a few guys there with inexperience that will need to be sort of become veterans over the next 3 years.
Okay, so that's 30.1 is that average age. If you took the team that played in Nelspruit that matched 23,
yes,
their average age, if you just took them and transported them to the 2027 World Cup final, their average age would be 34.9. So you're looking at pretty much on average nearly 5 years difference in the teams.
Yeah.
Look, it's a fantastic exercise you've done here. Obviously, I wouldn't go with exactly the same players. I would try and find players for an Ethan Hooker. I would wheel Cheslin Colby out there even if he was 40. Such a good player. But yeah, I just think when we talk about depth in this country and quality of player, it's these kind of exercises. You know, someone said to me over the weekend, why is Frankie Horn not the Springbok number 8? It's like, why is Evan Rust not number 8? Why is Cam Hanekom not number 8? Jasper Wiese's there, etc., etc. We tend to forget the moment one guy's out, the next guy's got to play. You know, like
Vincent Chituka's coming on strong.
You know, Sasha was like, we don't need Pollard, we don't need Marnie. All of a sudden, we need Pollard. Then we don't need anyone else. And Sasha gets injured. It's like, who's Sasha? So it changes very quickly. I love the fact that you've done this age comparison. There's a bit of science to it. And that also starts telling you the quality of player, also where the quality of investment is going to come. So does Rassie look at a 30-year-old player now that's playing really well, and he's thinking, that takes him to 33, 34 by the next World Cup, or do I look at the 27-year-old who's not quite there, but he has the greater longevity? So lots for him to think about as well.
And then the key to South Africa's success has been the scrum and the tight 5. And that specifically is the area where we have aging players who are going to be really on the sort of outer edges of the spectrum at the next World Cup final, and for whom we don't have young replacements readily available. So you think of Sos, 36. Loet de Jager, I think he's going to be 37. I mean, like Eben Etzebeth. Erkes Neyman will be 32 and has a long injury history. And the next guy up, you know, looking at JF van Heerden. So there's quite a drop-off in experience and age at that position specifically. It's an interesting debate around that.
When you look at the match 23s, I see you did a big list. Which
Sorry, Loet will be 34.
We're not going to go through that. When you listed every position, like a top 3, top 4 in that position.
Yes.
In terms of age as well.
Yes.
Is there an area that you think like we could be in trouble in 2027, or that you feel we're pretty well covered? It's a matter of identifying who that player is.
Yes.
Is there any position where you think we don't actually have the talent or the depth we think we do?
So loose forward, we're great. We've got more loose forwards than we could ever possibly field. Asterisk, we don't really have a ton of guys that play to the ball as classic sixes, the Fetcher style player. So not that that's necessarily on Rassie's priority list, but that's just something to note. Scrum half I found quite interesting. There aren't a ton of young, promising scrum halves coming through. All of the guys that are on the radar were relatively old. So you look at like Kobus Reinach, 37 at the next World Cup final. Ambrose Papier, 30. Grant Williams, 31. Jaden's 27. Morne van den Berg, 30. Saneli Nohamba, 28. And then you go down to guys like Nico Steyn, 25, Keegan Johannes, 27. So the age issue there is quite obvious. But across the board, other than that, I mentioned the tight five thing. For me, Wilco Low, Francois Malherbe is the best tight head in the world, and Wilco Low is probably the second best tight head in the world. He'll be 33 at the next World Cup final. Definitely a guy worth looking at. You mentioned Nietas earlier on. Definitely a guy to look at. Vincent Koch will be 37 at the next World Cup, and Thomas du Toit 32. But we also said Ntlabakanye is a guy who can add value there. And you've got Zachary Paulson coming through from the SA under-20s. Lou said less options. Gerard Steenekamp is 30, and Mkoon will be 28 in that World Cup final. So the tight five is a place where if we can find a young, promising player, it'll take a lot of stress off in terms of this age calculation. The rest of the places, we've got tons of players coming through. Wing we're quite old in terms of who's there right now and who the replacements are. Like Edwulf van der Merwe will be 31 at the World Cup. Leland Zas is 32. Suleiman Hartzenberg is a potentially promising option because he'll be 24 at the next World Cup and is coming through strong and is also versatile. So all of that figures in there. But the tight five is one place I'd like to see us find a killer youngster to just take some of the heat off there in terms of selection.
And if you look, the URC, and the one thing that has been amazing about the URC is the youngsters that have been picked by the 4 URC clubs. There's been no hesitation to pick a kid, put him in there, send him to Wales, Italy, Ireland, Scotland, see what they've got, and see the growth in that. And that's why I think for South Africa, more so than anyone else, being able to have 4 strong franchises, play in the best club competition in the world, but also say to 15, 20 players who are playing in Japan, playing overseas, keep on playing there, and you're good enough, we'll keep on selecting you. Means that conveyor belt ticks over all the time. It's not like you think Delaney's at 12 for the Stormers and he's going to be there for the next 7 years, or has been there for the last 7 years, and you don't know who's coming through. So what I do love about us picking overseas-based players, the very best of them, and continually developing our own system and then selectively bringing back some of the senior states people from overseas to play in our system, I think that's what's giving us the edge at the moment in World Rugby, that it's not either or. And we're not putting all our eggs in that overseas basket, and we're not saying you have to be here to play for the Springboks. It's like
we can pick the best of the best.
The depth of the squad of 45s and challenges to go towards 50 is because 15 to 20 of them will come from overseas clubs.
Totally.
And why we can have a Deolandi, Kwacha, the Peter Steffs, playing in Japan is not as intense on the body as playing in Europe, and he has given them longevity. And also, he doesn't have to pay them as much because those clubs are paying. I
think also, like, there are rumors about Andre going back to Japan. I think is an excellent move for that guy because he's an oak we definitely need to have at the next World Cup if he's fit and available. And playing in Japan will take some of the intensity, I think. Even though it's high speed, I'm not sure it's the same intensity as what he's going to be facing in the English Premiership.
Well, it's certainly not the intensity, but don't you think it's quite interesting that it should come now, post this Rugby Championship, where, again, he reinforced his value, even though he was on the bench for most of those 6 matches. But it's like, hang on a second, we need you there. We need you there in a different guise. If we're going to play the Tony ball, you maybe need to be 5 kilograms lighter. Your body needs to be kind of protected. Why don't you see if you can get a contract in Japan for 2 years? Because we actually want you there, and your role could be coming off the bench in the last 20, but you're good enough to play 80 if needs be. I remember Franz Steyn going to Japan and being the leanest he was ever, and playing such good rugby and that kind of stuff. So I think some wonderful plans are happening with players. As we say, in Rassie, we always trust. He's won the 2 World Cups. He's won the British and Irish Lions Tour. He's beaten New Zealand. He's beaten every country that they played against. We're in a healthy state at the moment. But age is the one thing that people will look at and say, do they bring Grandpa's army to the next World Cup? Because it's certainly not Dad's army anymore.
Correct.
And if they do, has he revolutionized the game again? You know.
Totally.
By the time we get back to there, they've reinvested in just the scrum. He's ahead of his time.
Yeah, I could just see some of these guys not playing any rugby for 2 years, sitting in an oxygen chamber, and basically being their same age in 2027.
So as always, Zels, it's been lekker to chat.
Yes.
Rugger, tune into the URC, back our South African teams, look for the youngsters, and remember when Zels points out a name, take note, Ethan Hooker. That player could be the foreseeable future for South Africa. We talk about a long-term replacement for Damien Delandi at 12. They're playing him on the wing at the moment. He's looking good. He's getting experience, confidence. But Ethan Hooker, when he does come through, you know that Zels called it.